Darin Sallam is a Jordanian-Palestinian director and writer. Her groundbreaking film Farha launched the Nakba genre. We're going to get into Darin's approach to cinema and how to tell emotional, nuanced stories that educate and connect with audiences globally. It's safe to say that Darin has paved the way for more powerful Palestinian films, and I can't wait for all of us to learn more from her through this conversation. Darin, welcome.
Thank you.
What is your weapon?
Obviously, cinema is my weapon. The reason why cinema is a very powerful medium is because it speaks a universal language, like different kinds of art. But I feel cinema speaks to, like, it moves all your senses as a human being, and it connects us as human beings. It could be used as an educational tool to create awareness. It could be used as a healing tool or just to connect generations. And by the way, I learned all of these from the audience of Farha.
Why did Darin gravitate towards cinema?
I'm a visual person. I love arts. I used to paint and draw, and that's how it all started. And I love photography and videography, actually.
But it all started with you painting and drawing and painting murals. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The very first short film that I have made, I wrote it as a storyboard at the beginning. I didn't write it as a script. It was a storyboard, and then I wrote the script. And it was inspired by the second Intifada, from everything that I was watching on the news. So that's how I found myself making films. I didn't decide to become a filmmaker. It's from painting and drawing, and then I found myself transforming these paintings and drawings into moving pictures. So I just became obsessed of seeing these, like the storyboard as a live action.
So it's a way for you to bring it to life. Like there was an idea, something on paper, and then you used your talent, your creativity to bring that to
Actually,
life.
Yeah, I found myself, as you said, I found myself having the need to recreating these moments that I saw. It was a way for me to heal and to express and to deal with this feeling of helplessness and frustration.
These feelings of helplessness, how old were you during this time?
I was 14, 15. I was a teenager when the second Intifada happened. But I mean, I realized that injustice is what really triggered me. Injustice is what pushed me or made me make films.
When you were as a teenager watching the second Intifada unfold, what was going through your head? And what was the next step for you? How did you put that on paper or in a painting or a drawing or in a storyboard?
How do we stop this? I had many feelings. Sad, angry, frustrated, like feeling I can't do anything, and I feel like paralyzed. I think one of the pictures, the images that really stayed with me was Muhammad al-Durrah and his father, and also Iman Hajro.
And who is that for people who may not know?
Muhammad al-Durrah, he was 8 or 9 or 10 years old, a boy who was killed by the Israeli army. He's one of many. But because he was just trying to hide behind his father, so the image of him, the body language and
like cowering in a way?
Like his small body trying to hide, and his father also feeling so helpless, not being able to do anything and to protect his son. We heard about like this number of people were killed, but seeing one being killed in front of your eyes was the thing that really moved me.
Like it struck an emotional chord.
Because we saw everything from the beginning. Him trying to beg for them not to shoot. And then them not listening and shooting. So that's what I mean, seeing the process was
and this
really...
is when you were 15?
Yeah, exactly.
And Muhammad was like 8, 9 or 10. So you're not much older than him.
No, we were exactly. Same age, not same age, like similar.
Yeah, similar.
Like
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, seeing these images, it kind of galvanized you. Like something was happening inside. And what happened? What happened next? What did you do with this?
I didn't know how to deal with this, but I think this changed something in me. And the only way that I was able to express was drawing and painting. And this is how I drew this storyboard. One of the reasons also why I think cinema is a very powerful medium and tool is that even when history fails, to do justice or to document, cinema can remedy these wrongdoings.
And I love that because history is written by the victors. Keeping that in mind, I feel like cinema is even more important to share varying narratives and different narratives.
Yeah, and cinema can do justice to people who faced injustice. I feel as a filmmaker, it's also my responsibility to dig and try to find these buried stories and give justice to people who didn't have a voice to express.
Filmmaking or artistic expression is kind of what you're feeling inside. Maybe it's an emotional moment, something that triggered you or something that made you cry. It's just questioning, why did I tear up? Like, why do I feel like this? So do you feel like it's digging deep inside of you as a person to then put out a work for others?
Of course, when you pitch a film, they always ask you why you think you are the right person to make this film. And it's always stronger when you can relate, or it's a personal story, or when I say personal, it doesn't have to be like your story, but that you can relate, you can find a connection between this, this character and yourself, or this story. And when it comes to Farha, I was born and I grew up listening to stories about Palestine, so it was part of my life, but also my claustrophobia, for example. It's something that made me really connect to the real character. And I think it's a natural thing that when, as a writer, you write, and as a director, you put from yourself into the characters, and they have something from you.
So you talked about how you connect with the films that you're telling, which leads me to Farha. What motivated you to make Farha?
When I became a filmmaker, I knew that one day I'm going to make Farha because she stayed with me for so long. So in 2011, I wrote The Treatment, but I was still studying, so I put it on the shelf for a while. I did many things. I worked in different jobs. But in 2016, I felt that it's the right time. I don't know how and why, but I felt everything is coming into place because the right time will never happen. The right circumstances will never come, and you have to create these for yourself. So I knew that this is what I need to do as my debut feature. Especially that there are no movies about the Nakba specifically. 1948, the Nakba is the root, the source of everything that not only ruined or changed the Palestinians' lives, but not only the Arab world, but also the whole world was affected by this event, and it's totally ignored and avoided in cinema. And I was wondering, why is this, why? There are no movies about Nakba.
And as a Palestinian, you were watching these events unfold throughout your life, because the Nakba, as you say, is ongoing. It's never really stopped. So you really went back to explore the root cause of all this suffering.
They call it a conflict, as if it's two equal parties and that it's a war, and it's not. So to me, it was important to go back to recreate 1948, to show the Nakba from the eyes of a 14-year-old Palestinian girl, from the eyes of a child, and from a room, because I felt it's a very attractive setup.
So what is Farha about?
Farha means joy. So Farha is the story of a 14-year-old Palestinian girl whose dream is to get an education in the city, because the village she's in has only school for boys. She's trying to convince her father to do this. And when her father is convinced, the invasion happens at her village, and her father is worried to leave her behind for her to get raped or killed. So he locks her up in a room, and he promises her that he will be back, but he never does.
So in this movie, Farha is locked in a room.
Yes, and her dream changes, of course, from getting an education in the city to surviving this room.
Right. And why do you think it's taken 73 years to make a film about the Nakba? 73 years when you released it.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make Farha, because I thought it's avoided and ignored in cinema, because I was told, why make a film about 1948? Palestine is not trendy. Palestine is not fashionable. I was told these things. And you can choose another character, like a Syrian or Iraqi girl. But to me, it's about being loyal to this event and to this story. And this is exactly one of the reasons, why I made Farha. Because it's ignored as if it never happened.
But why do you think it's been ignored for so long?
It's not easy to make a period piece. To be honest, I never thought of why, but I understand it's difficult to make a film about the Nakba because of what I faced in my journey in making the film. Because people see the film and think that it just came out like that, and making the film was a journey by itself. It was very difficult financing the film, having people to believe in that a film that talks about Nakba, 1948, will see the light.
Do you think that the odds were against you to make a film about the Nakba?
I mean, the Zionist lobby is really strong. They're powerful. Like, many people tried to tell me that this will end my career because it's my debut feature, and others would tell me you will never get funds to make it.
And this was all at what stage of the process?
That was in the development and financing.
You were out there trying to sell this story, and you were just being met by roadblocks.
Rejection, trials to put me down, to make me, like, telling me it's just a setup, it's not a film, you can't pull it off. Some people tried to warn me or tell me that this will, as I said, end your career or you will be cancelled.
You'll be cancelled for making this film.
Actually, you
won't have a career.
Yeah.
And as a young director, this was your first film. Did you ever feel like just giving up, or did you want to keep going?
All these trials and obstacles, it confirmed that this story needs to be told. And this film is really important and needs to see the light.
It's kind of like today with all the propaganda. It's like they're trying so hard to push this narrative, and you're like, what is it that they're hiding? So maybe similarly, you feel it's like, why is there so much resistance to this? And it kind of gives you the energy to want to push forward.
I felt that if I surrender and if I don't make this film, I will lose some respect for myself, and it will be so easy for me to compromise. It will be easy for me to compromise. This made it even more important to me to make the film.
You had told me about a mentor at a workshop, and he kind of put down your ideas. Can you share more about this?
When you have a script, you have to go through this pitching process and to go to film markets, to pitch the film, to find financiers and to have their attention. In one of the festivals, I was part of a pitching workshop, which at the end of the workshop, you pitch the film and you either win an award or not. So you're competing all together, the participants. And the mentor on this workshop, it was 3 days or 4 days. He was a Zionist, and he didn't say it out loud, but he was all the time for 3 days, he was trying to bully me, make fun of me and my story and how it's just a setup and that it will go nowhere, it will never see the light, it will never be made.
So you had a mentor at a workshop who was making fun of your story.
That's right, and even the other participants were annoyed, were like, this is not right. But at the end of the workshop, I won. I did the pitch and it was good, and we got an award.
And what did he say?
And he was upset, and he left. He did whatever. He didn't approve. He wasn't happy about it.
When he was putting you down, did he say anything about the Nakba in general? Was he denying it, or what was the reason behind it?
He said some stuff like there are some historical facts that are not right, but he laughed at me in the middle of me pitching. It was, of course, when you're pitching and you're serious, you're talking about an emotional historical piece, and somebody laughs.
And you're Palestinian too. This is a story close to your heart.
Exactly, and it's a story that also it's a tragedy that my grandparents witnessed and lived, and my father survived. So it was very rude, but also I wasn't okay for the 3-4 days. But I think this gave me also I became more motivated to pitch well.
On this journey, there's going to be setbacks, just like this. How did you keep your focus?
Passion, and it's my main motive always, passion, but also belief. Even if the whole world told you that this is a bad idea or a bad film, you fight until the end.
How did your family history inform your approach to making Farha?
It's part of who I am. Listening to my grandparents, especially my grandfather, every summer I visit them, and they keep talking about Palestine and about life in Palestine before 1948. As a child, I couldn't understand what's the secret, what's this place, Palestine, that I never been to, and what makes it so special. And they talked about it as if it's like paradise and the joy that was stolen from them. And this is why I chose the name Farha for the film.
It was directly from the stories you heard from your grandparents?
They talked about it like in a very specific way. Like it's so precious. It's so different. Like nothing is like Palestine. Nothing is like Palestine. And I couldn't understand until I became a little bit older, and I saw Palestine in their eyes while talking about it. And I lived in Palestine through their memories. I never been there, but I lived it through their memories and through their emotions and love and them missing the smallest details about Palestine, about their homes. Their lives is never the same after they left. And they couldn't let go. So I couldn't understand why they can't let go of this place. What's this place? Palestine.
So we held an event for Nakba survivors at a refugee camp here in Jordan. And it kind of came about when I called you to invite you on for this podcast. And I told you that I was interviewing Nakba survivors, and you said, I have an idea. What was the idea?
Actually, I really wanted to talk to some Nakba survivors and watch the film with them and discuss. Because I made this film, of course, for the West who don't know about our Nakba, but also for those who witnessed the Nakba and who survived the Nakba and who lost their houses and people and lives through this event. I have this fear of losing them. I always worry that we will lose them and we will lose this oral history. So I feel we need to document and to archive what they say. And also I wanted to tell them that this is a tribute to you. They are not numbers. They are human beings and each one has a story.
انتوا وثيقة حية للشيء اللي صار بال48. أنا جيل ثالث وما نسيت، وبدي أحكي لكم أنا ما نسيت اللي انتوا مرقتوا فيه. عشان هيك أنا عملت هذا الفيلم.
And so it was a really special event. It was the first time an event like this has happened to bring Nakba survivors together in one room to watch a film about the Nakba. This is what they've been through. They were Farha's age when they had to leave Palestine. What was it like for you as a director, but also as a Palestinian, to be there in that room with them?
I had mixed feelings. I was worried from their reactions. I wasn't sure how they would feel. I was worried about them and from them. I was very happy to hear their feedback and how they felt that it was accurate and it reminded them of their lives in Palestine. It was a very special and important screening.
After the screening, we interviewed the Nakba survivors. And what were some of the questions you were asking them?
I asked them, how did you feel? What did this remind you? Or what? Because I also saw some reactions in some specific scenes, for example, the henna scene. So I asked them, what did the henna scene make you feel? Or what did it remind you of?
And what is the henna scene? It's when they're all celebrating and dancing.
One day before the wedding, they celebrate the bride, and the woman put henna in the hand of the bride, and they cover the hand. So it's a celebration. So I saw the reactions of the women specifically, and I asked them about it. And the men, I asked them about the exile scene. I really didn't want to ask. I wanted them just to share.
And throughout the film, they were very emotional. I mean, each one had a different reaction, almost like they were watching themselves on the screen. I want to go through some of their emotional responses that came out during the interview. So one of the Nakba survivors Halima, said that I felt that today, if we were facing each other, we would win against the Zionists. She said they only won because they have airplanes. But now, with this film, we can win. That's such a powerful line. It's like your weapon is cinema and their weapon is the film now.
What Halima said is really important. She was really moved by this scene of, and it was very satisfying to her to see Muhammad spitting on the commander. To her, she was strong and she wasn't afraid. He was carrying the weapon, but she wasn't afraid of him. And to her, this is the Palestinian courage, and we're seeing it today also in Gaza. Also, the Palestinian woman is a symbol of strength and patience and resilience. This is very well known. So to her, she could relate, and she felt that as if she wants to be in her place, in Muhammad's place, and to spit on his face.
Because that takes courage, to spit on someone's face when they have a knife in their hand.
They teach lessons about courage. Actually, when I was a child, watching children, Palestinian children at the Intifada, Second Intifada, carrying rocks in front of the tanks, not being afraid, this taught me courage. And it's the same with the Palestinian women, who are not afraid to face tanks and weapons. And even in the scene when the family were facing the wall, they turned their faces and faced the soldiers who want to kill them. So this is just how the Palestinians are.
Halima said another line, and it was towards the end of the movie when we see Farha walking into the sunset. Halima saw the scene and she said, "The sun has set." Now I know the sun is a symbol that you use throughout the film. Can you explain the importance of the symbol?
The sun is in the film in many places because to me it's a symbol of hope. One of the scenes, she was reaching out to the hole, and there's the sun, and she's trying to reach out to the sun, trying to find hope. And at the end, Farha, after being locked up in a room for a few days, she's again walking towards the darkness because the sun is setting. And to me, this scene, I call it the beginning. Although it's the ending scene, but I call it the beginning because it's the beginning of the suffering of the Palestinians, the beginning of the diaspora, the beginning of what we're seeing today and what we're witnessing today.
And the fact that Halima pointed it out, the sun has set, there must have been something that spoke to her about that scene.
To me, this scene is Farha after she left this room. She's a woman now. And for the first time, her hair is on her shoulders. And she's walking with her dagger on her waist, walking with all the burdens and pain, walking towards the unknown. But she has to live. She has to live and she has to move on. It's like all the Palestinians.
In terms of the symbol of the sun, there was also a scene where when she's in the room, she's carving the sun on a potato.
Yeah.
Why in that moment did you have that scene? How did it advance the story?
Farha's journey is a psychological journey, especially inside this room. When you're in this place for few days, but you're not speaking. So one of the ways she's expressing is drawing on this potato.
Like you did.
Yeah, exactly, actually. This is why I tell you we
subconsciously perhaps.
Exactly.
Portrayed yourself
in Farha. Yeah, and I think she's drawing this sun because it represents, subconsciously she draws this without thinking, because this is what she misses. She misses hope. She misses the light and the good things that she has lost.
So as a filmmaker, you said you strive to create moments that touch people's hearts. And it seems like at this event for Nakba Survivors, the things that they were saying really touched your heart.
When I was doing research for Farha before shooting, I met some people, some Nakba survivors. I heard some oral history. But every time you think that you heard everything, but then when we met them, in the screening, I heard news stories. Like one of them said, my brother put me on his shoulders.
قول هو في مستقبلا كان يقول لي أنا كنت حاطك على كتافي عشان لو أجت طلقة وجهي تيجي فيك مع بعضنا نموت ما تظل أنت وراي أو أنا تموت أنت وأنا أظل لذلك كنت حاملك وحاطك على كتافي يعني هذا المشهد اللي كان.
Also, this was important because it was a chance for them to come together, and it's a collective experience, a shared experience. It's almost like a collective trauma. But they were talking to one another. They were talking about their past, the villages they were from, and it was healing, I'm sure, for them as well.
I expected that they talked a lot about their stories to each other, but when they met and they watched the film, together, and they were discussing after and sharing more stories, and they were sharing as if it happened yesterday. And I think most of them said the same, that their lives stopped there somehow. Nothing is the same after. And this is something that they all have in common. I'm grateful that we were able to meet them, to see them, to talk to them, and to document.
This film has made such an impact. It's not only educated Western audiences, but it's also now kind of this piece of art that Nakba survivors can also turn to and can connect with. How would you describe the impact of the film, and how does it make you feel as a director to see the impact that it has made?
I didn't expect this impact because it's not only being used as an educational tool in universities and schools, but also as one of the people that watched Farha once sent me that this film is connecting generations, because I'm watching the film with my father and my grandmother all together crying on the same thing. And we didn't sit together for like so long. So I think really I didn't understand and realize how important cinema is until I met Farha, and also heard from people. Receiving the film from like different countries, different backgrounds, made me feel that the film is in their hearts now, but also it's not mine anymore, because they leave the film, they take the film with them. That's why we make films, because films should live. And I don't want to make films that really people watch them and leave and forget about them the day after. So it's a dream come true, because as a filmmaker, I want to make films that make a change, have an impact in this life, in this world.
And I think this film is now like a historical artifact. It's really part of the culture and the narrative. And I think so many filmmakers and storytellers want to tell those stories that make an impact. What do you think, or how do you think they can do this? What do you think was the key to Farha's success?
I can go back to the intention, why you're making this film, and passion. But I think the intention, why as a filmmaker you're making this film, it makes a difference because the audience is smart.
You've talked about passion versus fame, right? People who make films because they're in it for the fame, they're in it for the recognition.
If you're in this industry for the fame, people will feel it, and you will not be able to continue for so long, because it's an exhausting, tiring industry. But if you're in this for the passion, then you will reach to the most beautiful place, which is people's hearts. Because to me, this is success, to be able to deliver emotions and for the audience to receive your film and to receive you. Because to me, the film is you as a filmmaker.
The success was a result of the fact that you led from your heart.
Exactly. I never thought of the result, to be honest, or where it will go. I just made a film that I believed in, a story that I believed in, and I made it from my heart.
What questions should filmmakers be asking themselves? Filmmakers who want to make a change.
Why are you making this film, and why it's you? Why it should be you who should make this film? It could be a good story, but you're not the right person to make it. I think we should be very sincere and honest and transparent with ourselves, because when we are transparent with ourselves, we can be then transparent with people around us and the audience. So know exactly why you want to make this film. Do you have the urge to tell it, or you just want to? Because you can make a commercial film, you can make films without really having this urge, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I believe that life is too short, and I want, in this short journey, to make films that really live and leave an impact and create a change in the world.
There's this quote I read from a book called The Creative Act, and it says, if you've truly created an innovative work, it's likely to alienate as many people as it attracts. Do you agree?
Of course. I think if you make, when it comes to cinema, for example, if you make a film that everybody loves, then there is something wrong with the film. You have to, it needs to be controversial somehow. I mean,
and you had controversy.
Yes, and I think, why make a film if it's not creating a conversation?
Like, great art opens a conversation rather than closing it.
Exactly.
You think Farha has done this for sure? It's opened it for generations to come.
Yes, I made this film, and I said that I made this film for generations to come, because I wanted them who never knew about the Nakba to keep learning about it, and to let their children learn about Nakba through Farha.
A well-known Egyptian film critic reviewed Farha, and he said, you told the story with such matureness and awareness and dignity. How did you do this? How did you tell a story with such dignity? Does it go back to what you were saying, telling it from your heart?
I mean, this is one of the articles that I'm really proud of. When I made Farha, I really didn't want to use cliches or to have like slogans in the film. I wanted to show the pain and the suffering and the Palestinian cause in a very cinematic, elegant way, in a soft but yet heavy way. And I think these things come in an effortless way, because it's how you think, it's how you feel as a filmmaker, and how you translate these thoughts and feelings into the screen.
How do you find that balance between soft and heavy?
I think they're both in me, because I think, as a person, I can be solid and I can be very soft. I think it's both. So again, it's as like all human beings, we have many things in us.
So it's really like, as a filmmaker, teasing out that nuance in you. It's like, it's not all black and white, like finding that gray area in yourself as well.
But again, I have to say, Siobhan, that it's really, sometimes, most of the time, it comes in an effortless way, because it's who you are. I'm not someone who likes to scream to say what I want, or use slogans. So it came naturally that I don't like propaganda. I just like to tell the truth in an honest, humane, artistic way. And that's my language, I think. That's my language, and I translated this language into a film. So it came naturally, I believe. Sometimes you can't fake things.
You can't fake it till you make it.
No, and again, I repeat that the audience can tell when you are faking something, when you are begging for emotions, in the use of sound, in the use of music. I didn't want to show Palestinians as victims, or to victimize Farha, my character, although she is a victim, but I didn't want her to look weak. You feel that there's like, it's an, again, emotional journey, and she goes through a lot, but you can see her strong in many different moments. And even when she leaves, the resolution of the film, when she leaves the room by herself. Nobody helps her. And that's how I want to show Palestinians, in a proud, with dignity, because that's how they are.
You released Farha in 2021, but you wrote the treatment for it and had the idea for it like a decade before that. You released it at a time when it wasn't, quote unquote, timely. Palestine was not splashed on the news. Now the world is paying attention, and many filmmakers and directors are reorienting. They're now focusing on making films about Palestine. Do you think making films about Palestine has become a trend? And how can we ensure that we stay away from that?
I think you can't control what people do. To be honest, I think what's happening in Gaza now, you can't make anything about it. Now, I don't think it's the time to make films about Gaza because I think the whole world is watching what's happening. I personally can't make films about Gaza and what's happening now. What I can do now is keep talking about Palestine, keep spreading the word, keep telling people about the history of what's happening, that it didn't start on the 7th of October, and keep hoping that this ends, the genocide ends. That's what I can do as an artist. But as I told you before, when I made Farha, many people told me it's not fashionable, Palestine is not trendy. And to me, it's not about that. I made it a long time ago because I wanted to make a timeless and universal story. That was my intention from the very beginning.
You've said an artist without values has no value. That's a bold statement, but it really stays with you. And it makes you question who you are as a person and as an artist.
As a human being and as an artist, you need to have principles. I said this line, an artist without values has no value. After a lot, like many days of frustration and anger from filmmakers and artists who are not speaking up for the Palestinians, and I felt so angry at them. I was like, how can you like not speak up for your neighbors while they're being killed every day and children are being killed and you're just afraid to lose connections and funds and approval from the West? What are you afraid of? I do feel disgust from artists who are not speaking up. And to me, they are useless. They are really nothing. The right thing to do is to boycott these artists, like products, because they're not more valuable, by the way, than products.
How can we continue to use art to advocate for the Palestinian cause and for other causes that matter to us?
Making films about Palestine or making art about Palestine is a huge responsibility. You need to realize the responsibility that you have and do your homework. When I started researching Farha, I had like a few months just researching. Although I know everything, most of the things I knew them, but I really wanted to make sure that there's nothing that I missed before. And then I had to stop and focus on the creative side. When you talk about Palestine in your art, you have to remember that you're talking about other people's pain and trauma and tragedy and suffering. This is why you need to be a human being and remember that it's about other human beings.
Darin, thank you so much for this podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you on, and I can't wait for everyone to hear this.
Thank you, Shivan, and thank you for coming here to talk about Palestine and the Palestinians. You are one of the people that are like that I was talking about, that have the ethics, the humanity, the principles and everything. So thank you.
Thank you.